to Congressman Grijalva for his leadership on this issue, to my colleagues who I join proudly to support this legislation, and to people like Laverne Cox who stand so tall and proud. Let me just say that while sometimes times are tough, it's these kinds of moments that remind us that this country always figures out a way to redeem itself. And we have a lot of people in America, as great a democracy as this is, who still live in the shadows. Whether you're talking about immigrants, whether you're talking about too many folks in the LGBTQ community, or whether you go back just a few short decades when Latinos weren't even counted in our statistics, and therefore it was difficult to figure out what to do when it came to diabetes for them, what levels of poverty they suffered. If you're not on paper, you're invisible when it comes to the federal government. And it's time that we allowed all Americans to come out of the shadows, to live a life the way so many of us take for granted. And this legislation is so simple. It simply says, let's just keep tabs of all our different communities so that when we make decisions in an institution like this, where policy is so important, we know we're making it based on the right information, not on some Neanderthal's anecdotal story about our different communities. And so this legislation will be introduced today. I can't say that I have a great deal of hope that this Congress today will provide the votes to pass it, but I will simply say this. 20 years ago, when the 435 members of Congress had an opportunity to vote on a very important issue to so many folks in the LGBT community on a bill called the Defense of Marriage Act, there were only 67 of us who stood up and said, no, we should not put discrimination into our statutes by denying people who love each other the right to marry simply because of who they are. 20 years ago, only 67 of us were willing to vote no. And while today we may not have the votes to pass this legislation in this Congress, I guarantee you, in the future, we will, and we'll be able to remind people. But the most important thing we can articulate here today is that we want people to come out of the shadows. And we want people to stand tall, as you saw Laverne Cox do just now, because we will fight to make sure that America catches up to the right side of history. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.